Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to all that have joined us today. We appreciate you taking the time to be part of our webcast. This afternoon, we're going to be discussing the topic onboarding, cross-boarding, offboarding, elevating the employee experience. We'll try to keep do our best to keep the presentation moving and lively, and so here we go. So my name is Peter Santini. I am the president of HR Management Consulting, Inc., Vice President of HR Management Consulting at HR Strategies, Inc. I will be your webcast host moderator today. Joining me today, we have some guests. We have Dan McCary, Terry Hearn, Shoaib Khan, and Jennifer Manlersfell. The four of us will be sharing information with you and taking you through some examples and taking you through a demo. So instead of me reading everyone's bios, I'll give you a few seconds to peruse the bios so you get familiar with everyone that is participating today, and then we'll start the presentation. So a little bit about myself there, and then Dan, and we're going to Terry, and a little bit about Jennifer. And I'll wait a few seconds, and I'll turn on to the next day, and then show you. So just give you a little overview of who the presenters are for today's session. Okay, so onboarding, crossboarding, and offboarding. A critical process in creating a great employee experience starts before the employee joins the organization and continues until the day they leave the organization. Onboarding, crossboarding, and offboarding processes can derail or elevate the employee engagement and success. In this webcast, we hope that you will learn some key trends on onboarding, crossboarding, and offboarding, how onboarding and crossboarding will increase employee engagement, how offboarding will make employee separation smoother, gain some key insights and ideas from experienced HR practitioners, and then spend some time going through the SAP SuccessFactors onboarding module for you to learn about. So just one clear thing, I just want to clear up the term crossboarding. What we're referring to in terms of crossboarding, it refers to an internal onboarding process. So employees who are currently with your employed, who change roles, jobs, locations, divisions, that's what we mean by crossboarding, okay? So let's talk about the employee lifecycle. When we look at the employee experience, it's important to take a holistic view. And this graphic that we've created kind of illustrates some different components of an employee life cycle in an organization. Now, we've labeled these segments in these 7 components, and one is attract me, second is get me started, third would be development, fourth would be manage performance, fifth would be engage and motivate, sixth would be recognition, and the 7th part would be wish. The employee life cycle, and we look at the 3 onboarding processes: onboarding, crossboarding, and offboarding. You'll be able to see sorry, my headset fell off for some reason. I'm back on board now. My headset's back on my head securely. As I was saying, when we look at onboarding, crossboarding, and offboarding, and we look at how these 3 processes touch the employee life cycle, you can see that from an onboarding perspective, you're looking at the attract me segment, the get me started segment, the development segment. And then when we look at crossboarding, it touches development, performance management, engagement and motivation, and recognition. And then offboarding really talks about when you wish someone farewell, and also maintaining contact so it can attract someone back to the organization in the future. So some key statistics about onboarding. 1, great employee onboarding can improve employee retention by 82%. That is a significant number. Keep that in mind. 2, 88% of organizations don't onboard well. So when you take 1 and 2 together, you figure out, well, if you do great onboarding and retention's 82%, but most of us don't do onboarding very well. So that's probably what leads to a lot of our retention issues. 58% of organizations say their onboarding program is focused on process and paperwork, which is typically where we think onboarding should be spent on, is getting all the compliance stuff done. Most organizations only focus 1 week on onboarding, and unfortunately, that's just not enough time. A negative onboarding experience results in new hires being twice more likely to look for other opportunities. So if they're not onboarded properly, if they're not join the organization in a way that makes them feel welcome and comfortable, they're probably starting to look elsewhere. 1 in 5 new hires are unlikely to recommend an employer if their onboarding process has not gone well. 87% say that buddy programs boost new hire proficiency. One of the key components of any successful onboarding process is having a buddy program. As you can see, the statistics support that. 81% of organizations believe cross-boarding is just as important as new hire onboarding. Most organizations believe don't spend enough time on doing the onboarding process for an existing employee. Once someone's been onboarded, everyone assumes they have all the requisite knowledge and experience to transition to new jobs and new roles. Unfortunately, that's not necessarily the case. The biggest onboarding challenge is inconsistent application, and that is one of the biggest challenges. In most organizations, how onboarding is done can vary by person, by department, by division. Having a consistent onboarding process does improve overall employee experience and engagement. 10. The average new hire onboarding experience consists of 54 activities. All this is to saying onboarding is not a simple process. It's a complicated process, but if done correctly, it will lead to better outcomes. So just want to share with you some workforce trends that impact onboarding, cross-boarding, and offboarding. So the rise of the new types of employment arrangements. So, freelancers, contractors, people that don't fit the traditional employment role. How do you deal with those types of people from an onboarding perspective? Those are becoming more frequent, and the change in terms of the employment arrangements is forcing organizations to look at being more adaptive in terms of their onboarding processes. Diversity of work arrangements, remote workers, flex time, flex locations. Long gone is the time where everyone showed up at the same place, went to the same meeting room, got the same information at the same time, got the same tour of the same location. These diverse working arrangements, again, have a significant impact on how you approach onboarding, cross-boarding, and offboarding. Changing organizational structures. Again, the traditional hierarchy structures are fading away. We're going into team networks, matrix organizations, being agile. Then again, these changing structures impact the way you perceive and initiate onboarding activities. There's an increased focus on employee purpose and well-being, health and well-being, social conscience, community support. These are all critical factors in the employee experience and employee engagement. Again, when you're developing your onboarding processes, this is becoming much more a focus to give the employee a feeling of connectivity and a feeling of worth in terms of what the organization does and connects them to to the values of the organization. Treating employees like customers, elevating the employee experience. In recent years, everyone's focus has been creating an employee experience similar to what we've been talking about for years in terms of the customer experience. We want employees to feel that they've connected to the organization, they have a purpose, that they get more out of the employment relationship than just a paycheck, and that they give more back to the community that they're involved with. So the trend in terms of treating employees like customers also impacts how we look at these processes. The end of the ex-employee. Now in organizations, because we're matrix, teamwork, remote workers, flex time, employees who leave the organization, assuming that's on a good note, you don't want to lose touch with those employees because they can come back and rejoin you. So maintaining connectivity with an ex-employee becomes, again, another factor to consider. Focus on data analytics. The amount of time and effort in the past that was focused on gathering data to make informed decisions from an HR perspective, specifically on onboarding, offboarding, and cross-boarding, was non-existent. Today, with the available amount of technology that we can source information from, to track information from, we can use data-informed decisions to help us fine-tune our processes and make things better. So, some key onboarding ideas. So, number one, fundamental policies and procedures. This is a basic requirement for all employees and covers anything from payroll, benefits, holidays, expenses, workspace, technology tools, cybersecurity training, interacting with other employees. A good onboarding process needs to tackle the fundamental components of the work arrangement. Understanding the company's mission and culture. Telling new employees the story of the company and the brand, why the business started, the needs it addresses, how it has evolved over time to meet the changing needs of the customers. Connect the employee to the mission and the culture of the organization. Very critical. 3, these discussions will help, meet with department leaders or leaders in the organization. These discussions help them understand the part each plays in fulfilling the company's vision, and also gives you exposure to leaders in the organization, which a lot of employees feel makes them more connected to the organization. A job shadowing component. Job shadowing can be a day, a week, or more, depending upon the new employee's role and how they will be interacting with a particular department on a daily basis. Giving them a buddy to connect with makes the transition smoother and reduces a lot of fear and anxiety from a new employee perspective. 5, the understanding of the role, the objectives, and the performance expectations. Again, when someone new starts or in a new role or new to the organization, it's very important to spend time and making sure they understand what their role is, any objectives, what their performance expectations are, and how that ties into the mission and vision of the organization. This definitely can make a difference in the onboarding outcome. Personal training plan with a schedule, timelines, and completion. No matter how experienced an employee is, when starting a new job, this is a must. This gives us some structure, gives some expectations. It relieves anxiety about what's coming next, of who they're going to be meeting with, what they're going to be doing, gives them a chance to prepare for things. Having a structured timeline is key from an onboarding perspective. Again, mentoring. Setting up a mentoring relationship with a more experienced employee can help new hires integrate into their role more quickly, and it helps develop a key relationship right off the bat with the new employee, or a new employee going to a new division. Having that key person that they can connect with to talk and ask questions with is critical from an onboarding perspective. Now let's shift over from onboarding to cross-boarding. Some of the key benefits of making sure you do some cross-boarding in your organization. It's cost-effective. Cross-boarding empowers organizations to assign an existing employee who has the right talent and skills into a new role within the company. It reduces costs associated to recruitment processes, new employee onboarding, and so forth. So cross-boarding is a cost-effective mechanism. Employee motivation. So cross-boarding gives an employee the opportunity to take on new roles, learn more skills, be recognized. Allows for development, allows for new skill development. It keeps the employee engaged and elevates their experience. Again, from an employee retention perspective, You can empower your workers to develop professionally, as well as reassure them that they can advance with their careers in the organization. As a result, this will allow, again, for much better employee retention in the long run. And again, opportunities to reinforce the company's values, beliefs, and vision with your existing employees are which they are keenly aware of. If you promote them from within, if you train people from within, if you develop careers, they're going to be much greater level of engagement in the long run. So now let's just transition over to offboarding. Keys to offboarding. One of the key things people say is, it's either a memorable or a non-memorable event. So making employee offboarding memorable. Now, there's an underlying assumption that in this offboarding situation, there is a positive relationship with the employee. It's not a negative situation where you're exiting someone for doing something inappropriately. But assuming that it's a positive situation, making it a memorable, warm type of departure, it helps reduces the possibility that the employee may speak negatively about the organization. With all the available social media available to someone, having a negative point about your organization can harm your reputation. 2, retrieve insights. Departing employees can often be more honest about feedback, what's going on in the organization. Exit interviews at this point give you a lot of information to help you improve areas in the organization and even improve areas from an offboarding perspective. So retrieving insights, very effective. And also from an offboarding perspective, you want to ensure that compliance, you're ensuring compliance to offboarding process, a huge risk in terms of security with respect to critical information access, the tools, tablets, laptops, access to company systems. All these things have to make sure that you are able to protect the organization and protect the information so that someone exiting doesn't do something inappropriate with that information or access to that information. Protecting your assets. If you assume someone is fired or has a massive layoff and there's a work conflict, there's an opportunity to do something negative. We want to reduce that possibility. Put in practices that protect the equipment, the information, and in extreme cases, practices protect employees from potential physical and emotional harm. I think we've seen a lot of headlines recently about employees who have gone back into the workplace and done some significant negative damage to the workplace or even to people that they've worked with in the past. Sorry, let me go back here on this one. Prevent productivity drops. When an employee leaves, day-to-day activities handled by him or her are interrupted. You want to make sure that whatever transition time you have, there's enough transition time to allow people to transition information to make the transition from duties from a new person either to an existing person less detrimental. And I apologize, the graphic is hiding the last couple of words of that statement. But the point is, spend as much time as necessary transitioning information over to the new person or to an existing person, whoever's going to be taking on the duties of the person leaving. So those are some key things. So when we look at those processes, onboarding, crossboarding, offboarding, we typically have experience with buy-in challenges. Typically, I think most of us have experienced this as HR practitioners, where we get some resistance from the organization in terms of how to spend enough time, effort, and resources on onboarding, crossboarding, and offboarding. Onboarding activities are mired in administrative activities. Onboarding is compliance-driven. Onboarding requires significant time commitments. Ownership of the process is unclear. There's no clear way to measure the success of all these processes. Onboarding should only be done in a week. Onboarding is just another HR program. I'm sure all of us joining today's webcast can identify with some of these common challenges. And hopefully, with some information you gathered today and looking at other information and also through the program that we're going to take you through the demo, you'll see that there are ways to eliminate these buy-in challenges. from the people in your organization. So what I've tried to do is give you a brief overview of some information about the three processes. And what I'd like to do now is bring in the big guns and help us have some panel discussion, thoughts, ideas, and pearls of wisdom about the three processes. Dan and Terry to join in. Let me know if Dan, you're there?
I am here.
Terry, you on?
I'm here.
Good. Thanks for joining us, guys, and welcome to the conversation. Let's kick off the discussion by asking this simple question. I think it's a simple question. We'll figure that out. What do you think the goal of onboarding should be, guys?
Well, Terry, do you mind if I go first?
Please go ahead, Tim.
Okay. It's dependent upon the role, dependent upon the organization, the organizational culture. We have seen some instances, for instance, Target Canada, where a major part of their onboarding was a video that was vehemently anti-union. And there have been studies that have shown that onboarding as a process is one that is used in some organizations to ensure that the employees identify with the organization and the belief that they don't need a third party to represent them. So in some organizations, that is a major outcome that they're looking for from the onboarding, is to get that buy-in from incoming employees.
That's an interesting point of thought. Terry, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I just echo a lot of that. I think it is about getting the mission in place. It's, I think at its basis, it's about trying to reduce or mitigate any, productivity loss, and also to get productivity gains. So obviously you're bringing someone on, or you're eliminating someone, or changing a person's position, hopefully because it's for it supports the mission of the company. And I think the better you do that, the more quickly you do it, the better off you'll be. And I think, Peter, you mentioned some of this in your presentation as well. There's a lot of the focus on the boarding, onboarding, cross-boarding, offboarding, is on that person moving, into, out of, or across. But there's also a lot of folks who are affected by an effective or ineffective onboarding process. So if you have a bad onboarding process, it falls to someone within the department to teach the person what really happens here.
No, that's true. I think a lot of organizations, from that perspective, when you develop an onboarding process, miss the boat in terms of providing some education and some training to the actual people who are part of the onboarding process.
Yeah, particularly in larger organizations, I find there's kind of an enterprise-wide onboarding process, but there's not a local application with a lot of departments or locations even that have some uniqueness to it.
Yeah, I mean, again.
Now, with the one thing that impressed me with the government of Ontario in their onboarding process is their use of realistic job previews.
Yeah.
When they're bringing somebody in, they actually have for them a realistic breakdown of what their day-to-day activities will be, what they will have to see, what they will have to overcome, what they will have to do, so that they don't sugarcoat the process or put on the rose-tinted glasses. People know what struggles they might have to, or adversity they might have to overcome during their time with the organization. And it certainly, I have found, has been a very effective method.
Skip the dating and go straight to marriage? Is that?
yeah. I guess you can say that. Yeah, the honeymoon period.
Yes.
Yeah. And so that's a key, the realistic job preview, which of course means that you have to have input from the people who are actually performing the role, and you have to have an up-to-date, valid job analysis on each job in order to do this, so that you know what they're doing, why they're doing that job, and what the realistic performance expectations are for that role.
That makes sense. Who do you think owns onboarding?
I think the organization, the leadership owns any employee experience. I think it's owned by the leaders, and usually HR is tasked with executing. But I think the success or failure of it, and you made the point, I think, Peter, in your presentation, about it sometimes seen as just an HR process.
Right.
But like anything any way we touch or we communicate with employees, that goes back to the culture of the company. And so, you can say, or I don't think you can say, hey, HR didn't do a good job onboarding. HR is going to do what it can do with the tools and support it has. So I don't think there's an HR person I've met who doesn't want to have someone have a great onboarding, because it's frankly less work in the long run if you have a really onboarded person's onboarded. But I think, anyway, to answer your question, I think it's every leader's responsibility.
Yeah, I agree with Terry 100%. Anything that you don't start off properly becomes much harder down the road. If you start to build a proper foundation, it is an easier road to follow.
So from that perspective, from a leadership perspective and the ownership perspective, how do you deal with situations where your leadership is resisting taking ownership from it?
Yeah. It's a tough one, right? Because a lot of times they'll say, I'm too busy, or sometimes a lot of your hiring, especially in large organizations, is at the more junior level. So the leaders are probably not going to see the value in them participating, or they'll, a lot of organizations I work with, they'll do a video from a leader or something like that, right? So it's hard, and again, go back to your presentation, Peter, it's hard to put numbers and metrics against a good onboarding. We know that if it's done well, we know it's a good thing, but it's kind of like your dental plan, right? If you have a good dental plan, hopefully people will be more productive. But how do you make that measure, right?
It's true. It's almost like saying, if it doesn't come up, it must be going well.
Yeah, and people, like, most of the complaints that I've heard in my experience is around people will say, well, gosh, I didn't get my computer on time, or I didn't get my desk or my phone. It's like really technical kind of tools. And so the leadership will say, hey, IT, get a process for that, or make something happen so they get those things on time. And those are important items, but it doesn't really tie to the real reason why people join an organization, and getting leaders to kind of come in and really welcome people in and say, hey, thanks for picking us, right? We're gonna.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
So Terry is already addressing the hierarchy of needs. We go right to Maslow, and you want to hit as many as possible when they first join the organization.
Let's get to self-actualization right from day one.
Yes, exactly. If you can, yes.
Yes. So to that point, good point, Terry, in terms of that. So what do you think? What role do you think technology plays on the onboarding process?
Yeah, I always think about the spectrum of there's an automation on one end, and then there's the personalized relationship on the other end. And I guess people can argue that you can create a relationship through an app, but I don't know if I'm completely convinced of that. But I mean, certainly there's opportunity. There's basic compliance forms and health and dental and things. Your tax forms and everything have to get done. And I know we were talking the other day. There's a very unofficial metric that says the quicker people get this done, the more successful they're going to be in the organization. But we'll see. That's my own unofficial measure.
Now, Richard Rodriguez here has addressed a question to us, or a comment stating that how this matters for all professional hires. And Richard is, of course, right. And we talked about this previously when we first had our discussions about this, is that where onboarding sometimes is not involved is with senior officials, senior executives. They don't go through this process because they're expected to be able to hit the ground running, or to not have to go through they don't have the same needs as somebody coming in at a lower level. And that's probably a mistake. In fact, for socialization benefits, they should be included with the group that's coming in and taking the onboarding.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of merit in that. I have seen organizations involving all levels in orientation, but you're right. There's a lot of times at a certain level, people get the white glove treatment, and they don't have to do all the process that everyone else has to do when they get onboarded, or they can skip a session, something like that, right? So that they are treated differently. I think it's a really good point. That if the onboarding is really important, then everyone should go through it, and everyone and the other thing is, once you see a senior leader sitting there with someone else learning the same thing they're learning, I think it just adds more authenticity to the person and helps them build relationships.
I like that. It adds authenticity.
Yes, it does.
It's key. Now,
Makes
another
sense.
issue that we've had, because being in the Greater Toronto area, I'm dealing with a very, very diverse workforce. The majority not born in Canada, and the majority not having English as their birth or first language. So we've had to make allowances for that. Plus, with the legislative compliance, for example, the accessibility laws, we have to make things available for them in whatever way is best suited for any needs that they may have. So a session that I just held last week, we had hired in an American Sign Language interpreter to help out through the day with a person who had a hearing challenge. And not only did that include them in everything, but it demonstrated to everybody else that we valued this person by bringing in the interpreter to assist with his learning experience.
That highlights the whole aspect of when you're developing these processes, you have to take into account all the different aspects of your own organization and the type of employees and services that you provide, so that you can address all the needs of the types of employees that you have, right? Or else, again, their onboarding process is going to be a negative outcome.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. I'm just going to move. We have couple more minutes left, and then we have to move on to the next section of the presentation. It's funny how when you start talking, how time flies. So I just wanted to ask you guys for any last comments, and then we'll move over to Jennifer. Any last thoughts or comments on either one of you?
No, the only thing I'd say is any one of these experiences, especially onboarding, is just remember the person coming into your work. When they go home at the end of the day, someone's going to say, "Hey, how was your work?" or "How was your new job?" And you're going to have a story to tell, and you can help make that a positive story, or you can or not. So just that's what I keep in mind when people come on board.
I concur with Terry. That's a great point for us to finish on. Is you make it a positive experience for them, and they then pass on to everybody else how positive the relationship and their experience with your organization is.
Great. Anyway, thank you, Terry and Dan, for sharing your ideas and thoughts and taking the ideas from you today. We're now going to transition our webcast over to Jennifer and Shoaib, who will now provide you with an overview and a brief demonstration of what is considered to be one of the best onboarding platforms in the marketplace today, SuccessFactors Onboarding. So I'm going to transition it over to Jennifer and Shoaib. You there, Jen? Hello?
Oh, yes, I just had to hit unmute. Sorry about that. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I'll go to mute now.
Okay.
Did you take over the screen?
I think so. Can you guys all see that?
I can, yes.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I know we're all excited to get right into the demo. I'm just going to start with a few very quick slides, giving an overview about SuccessFactors. So SuccessFactors, SAP SuccessFactors is one of the leading HCM products on the market. And, promising engagement is one thing, but delivering it is quite another. And so SuccessFactors is uniquely positioned to help you deliver on that engagement of people to purpose, because we look at employee experience through the lens of your total workforce. And that's your full-time employees, your part-time employees, even your contractors, to help you expand that transformation of the employment experience beyond the walls of traditional HR transformation. So ensuring that all your employees have all the experiences in every location, have the right information at the right time in the right way so that they can consume it. So, and just very quickly, SAP SuccessFactors is a fully comprehensive HCM suite. Well, today we're really going to focus on onboarding. You can see we have recruiting, onboarding, learning, performance and goals, compensation, succession and development, and all these talent management modules on top of our core HR system that's all wrapped up in analytics and mobile. And one of the great things is we say start anywhere, go everywhere. So you can start with any module and then add to it as you deem necessary as your needs become. You don't have to start with core HR. So SAP builds and maintains productized integrations for the entire life cycle of the software. Again, because we're talking about onboarding today, we have integrations with E-Verify, DocuSign, and other background check companies. And just a little bit about our unmatched solution depth. So we have deep localized support for 92 countries, and that's all those regulatory solutions. So all of your compliance, your paperwork, the compliance portion of it, we're going to ensure that you have all of those correct forms that you need. We do have quarterly updates. So anything that is pushed out in a timely manner. SAP SuccessFactors does have 110 million cloud users. We are a recognized leader in 34 out of 34 analyst reports. And we spend 3.4 billion euros annually on research and development, with over 300 dedicated legal experts to ensure that you do remain constantly compliant. I also wanted to throw this in here because one of the things we're also going to talk about, in addition to the different parts of onboarding, is a social collaboration tool. And if you look here, it says that our social collaboration tool will lower your onboarding costs by 19%. So we can show how that's really going to engage those employees as well. Okay, so let's get right to it because I know that's what everyone wants to see. And I do apologize. I had oral surgery on Monday and I'm not quite as recovered as I was hoping I would be by now. So this is SAP SuccessFactors. We are logged in right now as Tessa Walker, right? So Tessa is our HR business partner. So she has more permissions to do things. Now, the way ours is set up is that onboarding starts with HR. HR does all the compliance and paperwork pieces. Then it gets sent over to the hiring manager, who does what I call the warm fuzzies, which is going to increase, remember, we're going to increase our retention by 82% with those onboarding buddies and those mentors. That's going to be in the second part of this. And I know Peter says one of the challenges was inconsistencies. So we're going to show you how we can add some accountability and repeatability to this process. So right now I've actually started on offboarding. So we see here we've got the different steps. We have different types of onboarding, cross-boarding, offboarding. We can have different workflows for different types of onboarding within our organization. Up here at the top, I can see these are my tasks. These are the ones I'm waiting for other people, and I can see who it is and find out what they're doing and just try to nudge them along. I can see what's overdue and what's completed. And again, here I can see who these are assigned to. So let's go in and look at an exit interview. One of the things everyone asks about is getting our equipment back. So here's where we can say, okay, we're getting this back. Do I have it? Yes or no? And then we can start going through, right? Are we doing the checks? Are we doing the COBRA? And then I have to click that I've reviewed it. And then it starts going through. And this can either be done by HR or this can be done privately, just the employee. And you can see you can configure these questions to whatever questions you feel are appropriate in your exit interview. So there's a sample exit interview. So let me head back to here and show you the onboarding. So of course, everyone wants to see their documents. So here's where all of those government forms are kept within the individual. And again, I can go through as HR, I can see everybody that's in here and where they are in this process. If we go back in here, we can see, here's all of our forms. So SuccessFactors does come with these global forms to ensure your compliance. So here's your different countries, here's your direct deposit, But we can also do custom forms. So if you've got your policy and procedures, you want your emergency contact information, you want people to read your sexual harassment policy, all of those types of custom forms can be included in here as well. And they can be auto-fillable forms for the new hire to fill out in their onboarding platform that we're going to show you in just a few minutes. The other thing we get a lot of questions about is notifications. So how do we let people know about this? So these are some of these automatic notifications that are going to come through the process. So one of the most common ones is here on equipment. So we're going to show you from the hiring manager's perspective. And again, in our system, the warm fuzzies is done by the hiring managers. You can have all of this done by the hiring managers. You can have all of this done by HR, however you want to divide up these responsibilities. But you'll see here that it's done by a trigger. So in that trigger, you can see that there's an initial email that goes out saying, hi, we need these. This is going to go directly to your procurement that we need these items for this person. There's a reminder email that's also sent, as well as one that's on completion and one upon cancellation. So it's going to automate those notifications throughout this process for you. Okay. So now I'm going to log out and log in as a manager so we can see the other parts. So when a manager comes in, they're going to see this information that's now been passed from HR to them on how to welcome their new hire. So there is a welcome message, and what we're going to see after this is that portal that the new hire can log into prior to when they start. So they can complete all their paperwork, they can take any learning that's assigned, and they can start to get excited and go through all of this information. So we see here there's a welcome message. It's going to come with a templated message that the hiring managers can then personalize. We're not going to see this because you only see it the first time you log in, and we have logged in as Danny a number of times. But in addition to this, we can pre-schedule text messages to go out. Friday, can't wait to see you on Monday morning, hey, park and visitors parking, ask for Susie at reception. We can recommend links, right? We know that they're excited, so we want to keep that excitement up so we can start to say, hey, go do some research, start to learn about our company, our competition. We can schedule meetings, right? Remember, this has to be more than just the first week, so you want to fill their calendar with the introductions, the first day review, the team lunch, right? Keep them busy and engaged, not just with the manager, but with the rest of the team as well. And Peter talked about mentoring and buddies. So we actually have both assign a buddy and recommended people. So you can assign a new hire buddy directly. You can also recommend people, right? Lisa, she sits next to you. She's also a golfer. Joe used to have your job. He used to know this. So it's really trying to create some of those relationships on a personal level as well, because we know we spend so much time at work that these need to be personal relationships. So we're getting started on that. And we can also notify these individuals, hey, Lisa, Danny is starting. Make sure you reach out to her because she's also a golfer. Now we're back to that furnishing of equipment. This is where the manager can come in and say, hey, I need to get them a credit card, or they need a laptop, or they need a cell phone. So this is what's going to initiate those notifications that we saw on the other side. And then there's a checklist, because not everything can be done inside the system. Things like adding them to the distribution list, adding them to standing meetings. You know how many times you've come in and everybody's disappeared because they forgot you got the Monday at 10 a.m. meeting. right? So it's real reminders to have them do that. Invite them to the company picnic, right? Include them in all the social activities as well. And then the managers can also add their own items as needed. Then, of course, if you have an integrated system, we can set goals, we can automatically assign learning, right? It's really getting that person kick-started for not just their first week, but the first 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days to jumpstart them in the role and really work on that increasing of retention. So now I'm going to log in as that new hire, and we'll see Danny's point of view from all of this information. So Danny logs in, and she sees the most important information right here at the top of the screen. So she can complete her paperwork, clicks the button, goes into a wizard, just like we saw for the exit interview, to complete all of her paperwork right there online, which saves so much time on the first day. We all remember stories about going and bringing in your stuff and filling out your name and your social and your address 20 times and spending all morning doing it. This is going to get everyone ahead of the game. They can create their profile, and we can automatically assign courses. Now, right here, we have that information that we put in before. So if we look here at Lisa, Lisa's a golfer, signed by Jada, the manager. Joe sits next to you. He's had your job. Get to know him. So all of that information flows right from there to here. Things you should bring with you on your first day. Even where to go, and it links directly out to Google Maps so you can get directions. And then useful links, these are really fun. So this one right here is a virtual office tour. So you can include in these links, if you want to include the 3D tour, if you want to include a video, right? So they can go through here, they can go outside, we can go to the workplace. All ways to really get them
Welcome to the second floor.
Before they even start.
In this open workspace, you find your peers from the sales or consulting department, among others.
Okay. So you can really include in here anything you want to get these new hires excited and up to speed. The other thing that's here is there's a tour, right? Danny's never been on this page before. She can come through and take the tour of what to do, right? You're going to go here and complete your paperwork. Then you're going to check out your peers, learn more about them. Here's your contacts. Here's what the manager recommends you do, and then how to do that. So all of that's here. All of this is available on the mobile device as well. So you can really see how doing something like this is going to increase that engagement and keep that excitement and momentum going before they start. Once Danny does start, this will change. You see how she has a number here. It's going to change from a number to her actual internal email address, and she will get additional rights and privileges to additional areas inside the system. Okay. The other thing I did want to show you is going back to that social collaboration tool, or JAMs. We call it JAM. And this is an exciting way to let new hires share experiences and gain additional information about your company. So if we go into here to our community, our social collaboration, I'm going to go directly to this pre-hire onboarding group. And what this does is this is something you can set up. So in here you can have things like welcome, here's some of our guides, here's the team that you are going to respond to, your HR people, here's your onboarding list, we have discussions. So this is really a platform that's a combination. We say it's a combination of Facebook and LinkedIn. It has all the social sharing that we like to blame on the millennials, but really works for engaging everybody. So you can share discussions, you can post pictures, you can post videos, you can have ideas and polls. There's assignments right here you can give people. Right, here's your images, your documents. We can also have tabs up here at the top, so now they can come in and say, oh, here's our management team. Check out the management team. Here's the HR contacts, right? Who do you want to talk to for different things? We can have a whole tab on benefits and how to get started on that. Company information, right? Here's the strategy. Here's all, you can put all of your policies, the facts and figures. And then, of course, discussions. So this is a really good way for people to get involved and have those discussions back and forth. The other thing you can do is somebody like Tessa, who is our HR business partner, can be called an expert. So that way when people post those discussions, if Tessa responds, right, these are new hires, people who might not have even joined yet, they don't know. So it will mark her as the onboarding expert so they know that's being answered by an expert within your company instead of somebody who just started 2 weeks ago. So you can see how having a tool like SuccessFactors can really bring all of your processes back in. It can increase consistency, accountability, repeatability, keep that excitement going to really increase that retention and create a memorable onboarding and cross-boarding experience. And even offboarding, right? Because you want, again, with social media and the way it is, nobody is really an ex-hire anymore. So I do want to thank everybody for their time. That's all I had to show. If you would like more information on SAP SuccessFactors, onboarding module or any of the others, or on HR consulting, please do contact us. Do we have any questions?
So let's see, I'll take over the screen now, I think.
Yes.
And we'll go, thank you, Jen, for your presentation. Yep. And I was looking on board. At the moment, we don't seem to have any questions and answers, but I'll wait a minute or so to see if anybody submits anything. And if we do, we'll answer them. But I'd like to thank everyone for participating. And hopefully you found it informative and gained some new information today that can help you in your organizations. And if there's anything we can do for you at HR Strategies, please let us know. It looks like we got a question. It says, actually, was it Sue said, thank you. It was very informative. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. And it's actually, it's almost 1 o'clock. So I think, I'm sorry, almost 2 o'clock, our time, Toronto time. So at this point, I'm going to say thank you for everyone, and we'll sign off. Thank you.
Thank you.